From the beautiful city of Los Angeles, California, we bring you the Gimme 3 podcast.
Welcome back, cinephiles, cinema lovers, and movie appreciators to the Gimme 3 podcast, a series for cinephiles. This is the show where we pick 3 films connected by one theme. And today we're diving in deep, so take this as your official spoiler alert for the episode. I'm your co-host, Bella Efstratis, and while my incredible co-host, Nicholas Ibarra, is off enjoying a trip to Chicago, I've invited a very special guest to join me today. You may recognize him from our Yorgos Lanthimos episode last year. He's my go-to Sinister cinephile. If I've watched something twisted or absolutely horrifying, there's a 99% chance that he's already seen it or he recommended it to me. So please welcome back my horror partner in crime, the one and only Michel Eljaiek.
Hello. Good to be back.
Yes, welcome back. Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today. We've got a very exciting episode lined up. I'm very excited for this one. As you guys know, here on the Gimme 3 podcast, we like to have a theme. And, sometimes that theme lines up with upcoming movie releases, holidays. Maybe we'll do an actor-filmmaker spotlight for birthdays. But today we're doing something a little bit different. As horror fans, we wanted to take things to the dark side this summer. But, there's actually a lot of summer horror movies. So we had a few too many options. And anyways, we were just brainstorming a theme. And I kept jealously thinking about all my friends and family jetting off to tropical beaches and sunny getaways this summer. 'Tis the season for summer vacations. And then it hit me. I was like, you know what? We're going to do Sinister Beaches, the dark side of paradise. So today we've picked 3 very different movies. I think it's safe to say they're all extremely different.
Definitely.
Set on beautiful beaches, but behind that sparkling blue water and stunning sunset, secrets, danger, and sometimes even monsters lurk beneath the surface. So without further ado, Michael, take us away with our first film of the day.
Yeah, great. I was a little apprehensive to do this theme, to be completely honest. Not exactly something I would have picked, but I saw a post on, I think Letterboxd posted it, and it was a movie quote or something, and there was a guy saying that every movie is worth watching. From there, the rest is subjective. So I came into all these movies with an open mind, and it was a lot of fun. But yeah, the first one we're going to be talking about is the movie Old. It came out in 2021, and it is another addition to the hit or miss world of M. Night Shyamalan movies. Very hit or miss there. You never know what you're going to get. But essentially, it features a group of tourists on a secluded beach with some hard-to-believe consequences for them being there. This COVID movie, doing air quotes if you can't see, it is an adaptation of the French graphic novel Sandcastle. They're very similar in their plot and what they're talking about and what happens, honestly. It's pretty much scene for scene, essentially, from the graphic novel, but Old does include a little M. Night style twist that only he could come up with, which I thought was pretty interesting and added another kind of layer to the whole story. But yeah, I enjoyed this one. What did you think, Bella?
Oh man, I'm sorry to burst your bubble, but this was a miss for me. No, I think I have a lot to say about this movie. I think the basic plot, really cool that it's based off of, you said a graphic novel?
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. So I think the overall basic plot and twist of this film is really great. I loved this idea of this like wellness hotel sending their sick guests to this like gorgeous beach where their cells grow really fast and they age a whole year in the span of 30 minutes so they can like test their medicine on a
Mm-hmm.
human subject in like a lifetime that lasts one day, essentially. Like that alone, I think, is such a great concept, and there's so much to explore through that. That could be even, I think it could have been even more like horrifying and twisting, like that in itself. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know if M. Night committed to it as much as I wanted. Like he has the concept, but then I kind of feel like there's no script. Like he's just like making shit up along the way. um like okay, for example, I would have loved to see, I got too caught up in the logistics of all of this cuz I'm like, okay, if their cells are growing super fast, maybe he'd want to do something with like makeup, like have their hair and their nails grow super long, or like have their like teeth start rotting really fast, and then like I don't know, you know what I mean, like that element of it I kind of wish I saw more of as like a horror movie. If that, like, would you call this a horror movie or just more like a thriller, or like, I don't know, how do you feel about it?
So, I agree with what you're saying, and I feel like in a lot of the movies that I really like, the ambiguity aspect of it all is something that I really like.
Yeah.
And I feel like in this one, the Jaren's character, the nurse,
Yeah.
there's like a 5 minute monologue where he just spells everything out of like what's
Yes.
going on, like word for word, exactly. And funny enough, I mean, I just watched this yesterday, so I have it fresh
Mm,
in my mind. I'm not sure when
yeah.
you've seen it, but they ask, they're like, shouldn't our fingernails be growing? Shouldn't they be growing longer? And then Jaren is like, well, technically, the cells in our fingernails are dead, so those wouldn't keep growing. So, but then it's
Oh,
like,
okay.
but then, I think having that question that you had is a good part of it, I guess, but it would become kind of a plot hole. So I did find it kind of funny that they were like, let's give this guy 5 minutes to seal up the plot holes, explain everything to everyone, and then we can just move on with the story. So I thought that was kind of funny. But
That is
with
great.
what you said about different things like that, now that I'm thinking about it, another, like you said with the fingernail thing, like it would have
Mm-hmm.
been really freaky to see the kids just like start losing their baby teeth. Like if their baby teeth just started like popping out and
Yes.
then new ones growing out, like that would have been pretty
Oh,
crazy. That would have
yeah.
been pretty
See, like
crazy.
I I love that. See, I feel like the concept is so good and so unnerving and like
Yeah.
bizarre that like it would be so great as like a body horror movie.
But
And
I
there's
think it
really not
is.
that much of it. Well, it definitely is, but I wanted like Cronenberg level,
Yeah.
which I should have known I wasn't going to get.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's what I was going to say to your original question. Like, is this a horror movie? I would say no and yes, because a lot, like, I'd say mostly it's not. But that's also something in that I wanted to talk about. Well, we could talk about it later, but all of these movies set on a beach, they're all body horror. Like that
Yeah,
is the
yeah.
horror that they're choosing to go with on these beaches. And I think there's definitely a reason for that. But I
Mhm.
think we'll talk about that after we've gone through the movies and then talk about the similarities, I think,
Love,
that I
yeah.
found between all of them. But yeah, like you said, the concept is super, super interesting. I feel like M. Night got stuck doing either like a character study on all these people with trauma and issues, or just
Mhm.
diving headfirst into the kind of like horror that could have come out of aging very, very rapidly, So I do see what you're
Totally.
saying there.
Totally. Yeah, and like another one that came to mind was, you know, if it's just the cells growing super fast, like just their bodies, then for the kids who come to the beach as like toddlers and leave
Hmm.
it as full grown adults, like would their minds change all that much, or would they still act and believe that they are like children? I think that is another thing I would have liked to see instead of like like for example, when what's his name? Trent, the little boy, and the little girl on the beach are like rapidly growing up together. I think it's Trent and Kara.
Yeah.
And they like have sex and she gets pregnant.
Yeah. Yeah, that
All
was
in the
pretty
span of
absurd.
like 20 minutes on the beach, but like maybe 2 minutes on screen. And it's just so
Mhm.
rapid fire. And you're just like, uh, wait. What are we doing? Like, are they still children or are they like their minds? And then I will say, actually, as I'm saying this, I did like, there was a line, I should have written it down, that Maddox, the daughter who grew up really fast, has or said about like how um when she first got to the beach, her thoughts were really colorful, and then as she was growing up, she said like they're less colorful but there's more of them. And
Mhm.
I thought that was like maybe a more positive side of like an interesting exploration of how that like your brain changes as you grow, even though I was like, I can't decide if I want that direction or the other, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, totally. And I was going to talk about that with what you mentioned, that she said that, yeah, that when she first got onto the beach, there were really bright colors in her mind, but there were a few really bright colors in her mind. But
Mm-hmm.
as the more she's gotten there, there's more colors that aren't as bright yet.
That's what it was. Yes.
And that was super interesting to me. And there were a few other lines about the mental development aspect of it all, of them kind of talking about that they're just having more thoughts than they really know what to do with. And I thought that
Mm-hmm.
was super interesting. And I agree.
Yeah.
I think the mental growth aspect of the movie is something that I honestly would have liked for them to go deeper into. I would have preferred the movie to take the like character study deeper route
Yes.
than just the body horror, because as much as body horror does its thing, it doesn't
Mm-hmm.
necessarily really do it for me. Um,
Yeah. Fair.
so I wish they would have gotten into that a little bit more. But I do think that I will say, if we're talking about the body horror, this movie had one of the more shocking on-screen deaths that I have
Mm.
seen. And I mean, I've seen Bone Tomahawk. That one is crazy. Like, I've seen some of the Terrifiers. I saw that movie. I forgot what it's called, but the one where you follow the serial killer in the summer camp and everything is seen through his point of view.
Oh.
Came out like
Oh.
last year.
Yeah, I can't think of what it's called either. I know what you're talking about though.
That one has some crazy ones, but this one with the lady with the calcium deficiency, and she like
Oh.
breaks her arm and then is just twisting and turning inside the really small opening of the cave, like breaking her bones until she's completely mangled. That was crazy.
That
That
was
was
crazy.
crazy.
I actually had forgotten the calcium deficiency aspect of that, which makes it make a lot more sense.
Yeah. Well, and funny enough, I almost got that spoiled for me, because when that actress first comes on screen, she's Crystal, played by
Mhm.
Abby Lee.
Mm.
When she first came on screen, I was like, hold on, is this Dixie D'Amelio? I was like, is Dixie D'Amelio and old right now? There's no way. So I looked it up. I looked up who played that character, and they mentioned the calcium deficiency in like the blurb about the character. So I was already kind of like predisposed to remembering that. But yeah, it makes sense with that. But yeah, no, the body horror aspect of it was definitely there, which I think is why technically I'll classify it as a horror movie. Even when they're like removing her tumor and they're like
Mhm.
putting their hands inside her so the wound won't close. Like that was wild. That was wild. But
Wild. I
yeah.
loved that scene. I'm glad you brought it up. That's one of my favorites, I think, where I was like, "Ooh, this is clever. Like this is fun. We're getting into like yeah, I feel like as a whole in the beginning I was so locked in. Actually really really enjoyed it, and then it just went on a little bit too long for me.
Yeah.
Um and M. Night loves to tell instead of show. Like another
Yeah.
example that killed me was Early in the film, when they first get to the beach, the kids find this like rusted silverware from the
Mm-hmm.
hotel left on the beach by previous people in these trials. And, you know, immediately you're like, as a viewer, you're like, okay, got it. This is going to be important. Like, what's all that
Mm-hmm.
about? And then in towards the end of the film, one of the characters, he, I guess, was recently diagnosed with like schizophrenia or something. So it's like accelerated and he's completely lost his sense of reality. He's trying to kill everyone with the knife. And the mom goes to grab this like the rusted knife as a weapon and slices him with it, which is obviously really smart because due to the rapid cell generation, the wound gets infected. So he can't heal immediately and the infection kills him like instantly. But instead of, and it's like so great, but instead of just allowing us to get to this point on our own, she's like, it's rust. It acts like poison when it gets into your bloodstream. Like, I'm like, did she actually just do that right
Yeah.
now? Like, it just kind of ruins this clever moment. So that's where I'm like, oh, I kind of hate this movie because it pissed me off so much. But as we're talking about it, I'm also like, it's really not that bad. There's a lot of great, fun, clever, and like horrifying moments as well.
Yeah, definitely. No, and exactly kind of like what I said with the Jaren character moment when what's going on gets revealed, but he literally
Mm-hmm.
tells you exactly what's going on again,
Yeah, you're just like,
just
come
to like,
on, we got it.
yeah, exactly. And I think, I don't know, it might have been in The Studio, the show on Apple TV. You have to
Mm.
watch that. It
Yeah,
is
I need
so
to start
funny.
that.
It is so funny. And I feel like for any cinephiles out there listening to this, if you like movies and are into all this kind of stuff, it is the show for you. Like, it is so
100%.
funny. And they were talking about in an episode how some directors kind of downplay the intelligence of the audience and
Right,
are kind of like, we need to spell absolutely everything out for them
right.
so we make sure people get it. And I feel like that happens more when people are trying to make a blockbuster hit that just appeals to absolutely everyone, which I feel like I feel like that's just what M. Night tries to do with every single one of his
Yeah,
movies.
100%. Yeah.
Um, so yeah, and that's why I was saying earlier that I like the ambiguity aspect. Like,
Yep.
let me realize that there was rust on the knife, and that's why he's doing it. Don't like just tell me right in front of my face. Um,
Right.
but yeah, I mean, I said I enjoyed it. It's not like I love this movie. I'm not gonna go around like recommending it to people or anything like that. But I thought it was a fun time. It's not super long. Another Gael Garcia Bernal performance in the books for me, so
I
not
love
bad.
him.
Yeah, no, it was good. Nothing crazy. A daytime
No,
movie, as I would
definitely
say,
daytime movie.
as I
Yes.
would say.
Yeah. Well, any final thoughts on Old?
I think we pretty much covered. Oh yeah, I remember as soon as the movie started and we get the first few scenes of Trent. I was just like, man, this little kid is an old head, man. No pun intended.
No,
But
literally.
it
He's
was,
talking about like a mortgage. I'm like,
yeah,
what are we
yeah,
doing? He's 6?
yeah. That's crazy. And the him like just asking everyone, "Hi, what's your name and occupation?" I was just like, "What in the world?"
Oh, I loved
Um,
that part. So cute.
and there was a line by the character played by Vicky Creeps, Priska,
Mm,
where she said, "I just in this movie and the beach, which we'll be talking about a little bit later, there were just some quotes that jumped out at me for some reason, so I wrote
mm,
it down. And it's when she's talking to her husband Guy, and she says to him, "You're always thinking about the future, and that
mm.
makes me feel unseen." I was just like, damn, that's crazy. And, it's just like a little line there that kind of gets thrown out. But if you stop to think about that, she's saying something for sure,
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, there's a lot of good in the clunkiness of this
Hmm.
movie, I would say.
Yeah, I agree.
So, Well, if you guys want to check it out, you can watch it right now on Peacock or rent it on demand. Check your local video stores. Maybe they got it too. Alrighty, Mike, do you want to take us away with our second film of the day?
Of course, yes. This next movie is called The Beach. It was released in 2000, and it stars an extremely young Leonardo DiCaprio trying to find himself in Thailand. And what he ends up finding is much more disturbing and eye opening than what he thought he was going to find. And much like Old, this movie is also based on a book, not a graphic novel, but it's based on a book written by Alex Garland, a very big director. Many of you will probably know his movies like Ex Machina, Civil War, and most recently Warfare. Love all of those movies. A lot of critics say that the film does a disservice to the novel. Not hard to believe. Books always end up being better.
True.
But not having read the novel, I will say that the film does do a good job of exploring the themes it sets out to explore. As much as it might leave some out that were in the book, I still think the movie is effective in saying what it's trying to say. So, did you like this one? Would you think better than Old?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, this is probably, if we're ranking them, the best out of our three today, I would say.
Agreed.
Yeah, I think it's a weird movie.
Yeah.
It's definitely not what I expected. I watched this with Jonathan and he hated it. Surprise,
Really?
surprise. Yeah. It was really funny. But it was kind of fun to recap it with him after because I was loving it, he was hating it. And so we were having these totally different experiences. And yeah, the recap was just interesting to hear like what he hated about it, cuz I feel like then when I went online I noticed that there is a lot of kind of like, it's kind of a polarizing film. Like some
Yeah.
people really love it, like 5 stars on Letterboxd, heart, and then others are like 2 stars, like I can't believe this is someone's favorite movie.
Yeah.
You're like, okay, interesting. But yeah, for me, I think it was really fun. I think I don't know. My initial impression of it was like it kind of reminded me of this is going to sound weird, but Everything Everywhere All at Once, where like
Mm.
it's kind of the ultimate genre blend.
Yeah.
Like you get everything in this movie and more in
Mhm.
really unexpected ways. But I think it's really clever because this movie is ultimately about this young 18, 19-year-old boy who doesn't know himself and feels like he hasn't experienced the real world and like
Mhm.
goes on this big adventure to find reality and then
Mhm.
is like smacked across the face with it in not like very normal ways, I
Mhm.
guess. So yeah, he gets just like all of it all at once. And I think it was really a cool way to like show that in this story.
Yeah, definitely. I'm in the camp that really liked the movie. I thought apart from the fact that I think it is talking about something that has a lot of substance, it was also just a fun watch.
Yeah.
I did really enjoy it, and this is one of those movies where I know I said that the ambiguity is something I like, but part of
Mm-hmm.
me at the end I was like, I want to know this guy's story before. Like, what made him want to come over here? But I think the fact that the movie doesn't go into that also packs as much of a punch as if it did go into that. Because
Yeah.
by not going into it, it's kind of like, it doesn't matter. He's here, and that's what matters. It's like,
Yeah.
doesn't matter what happens in your life or what you're going through that makes you want to have that, or that gives you that sense of wanting to discover reality, yourself, or whatever. It doesn't really matter what each person's specific thing was. It just matters that I think that's a pretty universal experience, with
Totally.
everyone wanting to know the truth, know the meaning of
Yeah.
life, know who we are. So yeah, I thought that was pretty interesting. And there's a lot of little things that kind of just point towards that. And I just think this movie was such like a perfect example of a hero's journey type thing, where it's like he's talking to Daffy, and it's kind of like he's getting the call and then the refusal of the call, and then he's like, fine, let's do it, and he
Yeah.
finally chooses, and he recruits other people to go with him. They gotta cross the threshold of the ocean and getting to, so I thought just a really, really good example of that trope.
Yeah.
And with what you were saying, that he's trying to find himself or in search of something, there's one scene at the beginning of the movie where Daffy is kind of tweaking and just banging on everything, banging on the doors, screaming outside of the room and everything. And then you hear the screen above Leo's bed rip. And immediately I was like, oh man, this guy's like ripping the veil into Leo's life and making that, like, breaking that threshold of like, now you're getting into something. And when they're talking, there's a really, really cool shot where Leo is slightly below him and Daffy is slightly above him, but they're still kind of speaking through this window, but Daffy's definitely above him, speaking down to Leo.
Right.
And Daffy has this like really bright red light behind him, like reddish orange light behind him. And that just reminded me of the story of Prometheus, of like finding fire from the gods and bringing it down to humans. And then it ends up hurting them because it's forbidden knowledge or whatever.
Right.
And I think that's kind of what Leo went through. He was looking for this meaning, for this, on this quest to find reality, like you said, and Daffy gave him the tools, kind of like Prometheus with the fire. And once Leo actually goes to find that, it almost destroys him, literally.
Yeah. Oh my God, that's a beautiful analysis. I love that. Yeah, Daffy is a hell of a character, random dude that Leo's character meets in the like a hostel in Bangkok.
Yeah.
Played by the great Robert Carlyle, must I add too. I love him. He is perfectly unhinged in every role. I feel like we should talk about like the in-between stuff of all the different dynamics here. He meets that couple, Etienne and Francois. I was like, oh, we've got kind of a Mr. Ripley dynamic here. He's like, come with me so I can get with your girlfriend.
Yeah.
And then it turns into like a little bit, there's like one shot that reminded me of this classic shot in Y tu mamá también, where it's like the three of them looking at the ocean. And it's just like, this movie's so interesting. It's such an interesting evolution of like genre, just like flowing into the next one. Yeah.
I feel like that's how, at least with Old, it was, like you said, like definitely a genre blend as well. So that was, it's interesting to see what a movie does that. And then it's a hard thing to do. So when it's done somewhat well, it definitely hits for sure.
100%.
Yeah, I mean, I like I said, I really, really like this movie. Even the time that he spent there on the island, when he was looking for it, it was like this anticipation, the danger with the farmers there, and then he finally finds it, and he's living in this paradise, which initially seems perfect, like a self-sustained culture that's out there on this paradise of an island. But what I also found pretty interesting is that they weren't really self-sufficient. When it came time to go back to the mainland, it was like, oh, I need batteries, I need like disposable camera. Everyone needed something still, and kind of still had that connection to the real world, but I feel like the one that was the most bought into everything was Tilda Swinton's character, Sal, she was basically fully bought in and wanted to live in this escape, which I think
Yeah.
is something that all these movies have in common, or at least the beaches in these movies. They all portray an escape, like an old, they were just looking to have a scenic escape from the resort and kind of get away and have their own personal thing. In the beach,
Right.
the beach was an escape from the mundane real world with the parasites, like
Yep.
Daffy said. But something that I realized, which kind of ties into The Sand as being an escape, that movie, is that when they went back to the mainland, everyone there was trying to escape as well.
Right.
Whether it was through partying, doing all the stuff that gets done in Thailand, it's just like they're going over there to escape. So and that's kind of the same thing like it was in The Sand. They were going out there, college party, college is done. They're going to the beach to party and stuff, looking to escape. So that aspect in all these movies, I feel like, is pretty strong and is a defining characteristic that these beach movies are wanting to talk about. And with the beach especially, it was kind of like what are you willing to do to get to the escape, but what are you willing to do to stay in the escape and not kind of return to the real world sort of thing. And even in Leo throughout the movie, the movie turns into a video game for like 5 minutes. And I think that was kind of Leo trying to rationalize him tapping into like the most basic aspects of his human nature, literally sustaining
primal
on the land, being primal, eating bugs and stuff, and that was his way of rationalizing, being like, this is my human nature. It's like a game sort of thing. So even that was an escape for him from what he found of when he was all alone and got banished to the watchtower and stuff. So a lot of different little things going on throughout the movie for sure.
No, I love that. It's a great breakdown. And like, I totally agree. I think my favorite aspect of this film is just the themes of what humans will do to each other to preserve their own peace and more importantly, their pleasure. And Paradise is Lost. Like it's kind of like one of the messages I got from this movie. It's a little bit bleak, but it's like, I don't know that paradise can exist where humans exist because this island was perfect before people got there. And then once they did and they started saying, this is my home and we can't have more people here. And then like when things go horribly wrong, they're just like, okay, well, let's pretend it's not happening so that we can play volleyball on the beach. And so in reference to this, I guess we should talk about the shark attack scene, which is one of the most insane parts of this movie because up until this point, there's not that much danger. Like it's kind of, I don't know, at least in my opinion, up until that point of the film, you only get bits and pieces of like, ooh, this feels a little weird. Or I don't know what the dynamic is with this like kind of cultish group of people, but they all seem really happy and chill and they help each other out. And then this like horribly tragic shark attack happens with 3 of the guys who are living on this island. And one of them dies and the other has this like horrible chunk bitten out of his leg. And they tell him either you can get on the boat and go back to the mainland to go to see a doctor, or you got to just wait it out because we won't bring one here. But he's too afraid to like go anywhere near the water. So he ends up staying and just suffering to the point where this group take him off into the jungle and just leave him. And then it cuts to them just like playing volleyball on the beach together. And it's such a sickening moment. Like one of the most disturbing for me in this film for sure.
No, 100%. And then right there again, body horror with the leg chunk out. Like that was crazy. That was crazy. It was so graphic, looked so real. and yeah, like you said, it was them kind of again being like, what are you willing to do to stay in this escape? Like, are you willing to not care about someone's life and just to keep living in this like ignorant bliss kind of
Right.
thing? And yes, that was definitely a big plot point and a big message that I think they were trying to get across. And with what you said about paradise not being anywhere where humans can be, it's in that last scene, Richard, Leo's character, receives that picture back from Francois. And when he's looking at it, he said something that I kind of just wrote down quickly. It's not the exact quote. I was just trying to get the main thing that he said. But he said, paradise is a moment where you feel you're a part of something. And for that split second, you are in paradise. So I feel like it's not paradise is necessarily a place or a thing or something like that, but something that we end up feeling once we belong, kind of thing is what I got from what Leo was saying, and kind of on the piggyback of what you were saying earlier of Dewey kind of being like this messenger and stuff, and giving Leo this like, or what we were talking about, giving Leo this knowledge when he's first walking through the markets in in Bangkok. He says, "This is the place where the hungry come to feed." And I just thought that's such an interesting kind of juxtaposition, but it's true. You know, it's these people that are trying to make a living, trying to provide some kind of service or whatever. But, you know, people go over there and get scammed sometimes, like in tourist scams and things like that. And I feel like they kind of take advantage of that desire for you to buy something, you know, whatever. And that's kind of what happened to Leo, with that. He was looking for something, and someone that was hungry, Daffy, went to feed him with information, and it's like it was detrimental to both of them, sort of thing. But now we're not talking about the shark attack anymore, so my bad.
No, this is good. This is good. I mean, because it is just a stepping stone, you know, and then I feel like the shark attack it's like the middle point of the film. It's when everything changes, you know. It's like really comes down to an out of sight, out of mind kind of thing. Like even just that alone is so interesting to think about how much that works for humans. It's like, I can't see it in front of me, it's not affecting me. And I thought that was a really interesting, just like small but big aspect of this movie as well.
Yeah, definitely. Something that I found interesting was that they kind of like the guy that got his leg bitten and was sent out into the woods. He kind of, as much as it was like a terrible thing for him to happen to him, you know, I feel like it also kind of was what woke up at least some of the group, you know, to be like, man, this is not right what's going on. So he ended up kind of being their savior, kind of, if you know what I'm saying, inadvertently. And do you remember what his name was?
I don't remember his name.
Christo.
Oh yeah, that's right.
So I thought that was an interesting little thing that they added there, that he kind of ended up saving them through dying and stuff, and giving up of himself unintentionally, you know. But I just thought that was pretty interesting as well. Just a little detail.
100%
that they added. But yeah, it was a really good movie. I really liked it. Now that you said that Jonathan didn't like it, it was probably because of the narrating. I know he hates that when someone's narrating.
I think you're right. I think you're absolutely right. And the video game part, he did his his tisk. And that's how I know. I'm like, oh, he's not vibing with this.
That's funny. Yeah, no, but I liked it. And I think once the really interesting part of watching all these movies for me was looking into the things that they all have in common, and then kind of looking at what they had in common, and then thinking about it in the context of the specific movie. that made things really interesting. So I'm sure we'll get into some of that after we discuss The Sand.
Yes. Let's get into it. Well, if you guys are interested in checking out The Beach, maybe rewatching it, you can watch this anywhere on demand, or it's streaming on the Criterion channel as well. We are closing out with our third and final film of the day. This movie is very committed to our theme. It takes place entirely on the beach. We start there, we end there. And of course, there's a sinister presence lurking beneath the sand. So, introducing the cleverly titled low budget indie sci fi horror, The Sand, directed by Isaac Abaeff and released in 2015. This movie drops us into a midnight beachside rager. Through handheld footage, we see a whole bunch of slutty college kids drinking, dancing, hooking up. And for just a brief moment, we catch a glimpse of two wasted frat brothers stumbling by with a huge slimy egg. But before we can get a good look, the camera cuts away back to the party at hand. Here's where we meet our key players. There's Kaylee, our leading blonde bombshell, who's heartbroken when her stupid boyfriend Jonah cheats on her with another hottie named Shonda. Kaylee decides to drink her sorrows away with nice guy Mitch, played by Mitchell Musso. That's the only actor I'm going to name drop because I just think it's too funny. Like, for all you Hannah Montana fans out there, he's in this. We also have Gilbert, the big lightweight who passes out first and is rewarded with a cartoon penis drawn on his face. And then we've got dumb blonde number 2, Marcia, dumb blonde number 3, Ronnie, and her even dumber boyfriend, Vance. So when morning comes, they're the only ones left on the beach. Kaylee and Mitch wake up in the lifeguard hut. Jonah, Shonda, Ronnie, and Vance passed out in Jonah's car. And Marcia wakes up on a picnic table, puking her guts out. And poor Gilbert wakes up stuffed and stuck in a small beach trash can. I guess the cartoon drawing on his face wasn't enough. And everything seems pretty normal until Kaylee notices a seagull that seems to be stuck to the sand. In a flash, she watches in horror as it gets yanked beneath the surface. But before she can say or do anything, Marcia has stepped off the picnic table and seals her fate. Her feet are instantly glued to the sand. She's screaming and crying for help. So Vance jumps out of the car to rescue her. But as soon as his feet hit the ground, they're sticking to, and he falls flat on his face. And that's when we see it. These tiny, hair-like tendrils rising up through the sand, rapidly eating away at his skin and flesh before dragging him under. So at this point, they realize that everyone else who fell asleep on the beach must have already been consumed by the sand. And from here on out, it's all about survival. The remaining stranded crew must find a way to escape the beach without ever touching the ground, because one wrong step and they'll be next. All right, Mike, what did you think of The Sand? Are you happy I made you watch this one?
So happy. So happy. This movie was absolutely absurd. And the best part about it is that as I watched it, I think I had seen probably 20 to 30% of it already, strictly through Instagram Reels.
Sounds about right.
The scenes from this movie always just pop up on my feed because that's what it is. It's 60-second increments of reels is what makes up this two hour and 20-minute long movie is just a whole bunch of reels put together. That's how I can describe this movie.
Oh yeah.
But it was really interesting. It was the best time, I'd say, out of all of them, just because it was so absurd what you're watching. Not a lot of brain power having to activate to watch this one. So another daytime movie, maybe even morning movie, Might go as far as to say that. But yeah, I didn't love it. I'm not gonna watch it again, and I love rewatching movies. But yeah, not for this one. But like I said previously, I think looking at this movie and the themes and kind of little tropes that are in it that are also in the other movies is what kind of made the watch more interesting for me.
Yeah.
Because all these movies are on a beach, so what else are like what other boxes are all of them ticking? So I thought that was pretty interesting. With this one, same thing. The escape, like we talked about before, they just finished a midterm and we're trying to get away from all of that. And yeah, the one with the thing that this one really just hit the nail right on the head was them being stuck where they
Right.
were, literally, like once they're in this perceived utopia, like they can't leave, the place where they're partying and stuff. It's like, you're stuck here now. And that was literally done by the sand sticking to them and not letting them leave. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah. I actually love this movie. I think it is beyond ridiculous and cheesy. Terrible dialogue, goofy ass actors, and just awful CGI. But regardless of all of this, I think it's genuinely a lot of fun. Like you said, a great daytime movie, fun, campy. I think it's a great creature feature that deserves some love. I even found myself like kind of caring about some of the characters, which I was not expecting. For example, Ronnie, she was my favorite character. She's like the classic, at first she's like the classic horror movie trope, like big boobs, dumb blonde. But as the film goes on, I was like, wait, she's actually one of the smartest and bravest of the bunch.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a nice subversion of the trope that we've seen a billion times. Like there's this scene is when they've all stupidly locked all of their phones in the trunk of the car that they're in. And she decides to try to get them out without touching the sand.
Yeah.
And you're just dealing with so much in this moment, because it's like, okay, you can't touch the ground. The trunk, she has to somehow like get to the back to stand on like the bumper, but the car has been baking in the sun all day. And you're just like, there's so much going on right now. And I don't know, I loved that scene. I found my like palms were sweating, so I was like, oh, I don't want my girl Ronnie to go down like the rest of them.
Yeah, that scene was cool. I was gonna say that the movie was kind of funny at some points, like the guy that was stuck in the trash can, Gilbert, the boy Gilbert. I thought that was pretty funny, just because every time the camera would cut to him, he just had a giant penis on his face, and I thought that was pretty funny. I also liked it when the beach security guard came by, and he was just like, This only happens on drugs. I know y'all are tweaking.
Somebody's tweaking.
Bro. Yeah, he's like, someone's tweaking. It's like, bro, it sounds like I wrote this. What in the world? Like, that was so funny.
Okay, I'm glad you appreciated really that scene, because I also wrote it down as one that gets a pop out of me. It's just so ridiculous. Well, and then it leads up to another scene that cracks me up. After this like useless security guard cop, whatever, shows up, he drops his car keys and his pepper spray in the sand, goes to grab it, gets stuck, gets killed by the sand, but the pepper spray is still there because it somehow works on the sand with this monster underneath. And so Mitch is like, all right, I'm gonna spray my feet with pepper spray and wrap them in towels and run across the sand to the car. And as he's like leaning over the balcony of the lifeguard stand to grab these towels from Ronnie, who's in the car, the rails snap and he falls like flat on his back into the sand. And he's just like fully flat. He can't even move. And it's so sad because he's so confident in this stupid plan. He just instantly gets cooked, and it is a brutal death. He's just like flat lying there as his whole back is getting consumed by this flesh-eating monster, and all they can do is just like watch him slowly go.
Yeah.
It's brutal.
That was crazy. He was so confident. He's like, he was like, I'm fast as hell, I promise. I was like, bro, what?
Oh,
So
the writing
funny.
is just
And
so
then,
stupid, but I love it.
yeah, and that's what I mean. Like, it was, I was kind of laughing at the movie and laughing with the movie for most of it. Like, literally, most intense part. Kaylee decides she's gonna jump into the car and whatever, do the whole plan to get everyone out. She jumps into the car, and then she just goes and punches Shonda, and is like, "That's for sleeping with my boyfriend, bitch." I'm just like, what in the world? Like, bro, lock in.
Yeah.
Y'all are about to die.
Another like perfect scene like that is when her boyfriend Jonah is like trying to get across to the car, and it's really intense. It's like, okay, here we go, and he just turns around, he's like, I never meant to hurt, or he's like, I can't believe you're like being such a bitch about this, Kaylee. And it's like, whoa, what are we doing right now? Like, you're gonna pick a fight right now about something that's so irrelevant to these high life or death stakes. I could have done without the romance aspect of this movie for sure.
Yeah, I agree. But then now we're getting into commonalities between the three movies.
Yes, break it down.
There was infidelity in every single one.
Oh wow, that's so true.
Which I found really, really interesting. That at all these beaches, people are cheating on each other. Like, why? You know, why is everyone cheating on these beaches?
No one can ever be satisfied.
Right? Yeah, exactly. And I think that's kind of what it goes into. And also another thing that I've written down for all of the movies was the relationship of humans with their human nature, but also the relationship between humans and nature. Is something that I caught on through all of them, apart from it being like humans using nature as an escape, you know, because we already talked enough about the escape aspect of all of these movies. I feel like with especially with The Beach and Old, it's like this nature around them is definitely having an effect on their lives. Very clearly with Old, but with The Beach, it's like, even if you look at the shark attack that Leo survives, that kind of spurs something in him and is kind of like he is fighting nature at that point. And that's one thing that I was thinking during The Beach a lot. I was kind of like, man, they're just going through this jungle. Like, what if they get bitten by a crazy spider and they're just cooked out there, you know?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I just think that's something that I think everyone will kind of come to their own conclusions about what these movies are trying to say about human nature. And kind of on that, which I think is an aspect of human nature, but also touches on the infidelity, is that in all of these movies, there's people that want things that they can't have or that they're not supposed to have.
Right.
You know? And even if that is a romantic partner, like with the infidelity, or even if it's the beach themselves, because in all of these movies as well, the beach that they reach or that they are at is either closed, like in The Sand.
Yep.
It is part of a closed off nature reserve, like in Old, or it's protected by the government. No one is supposed to access it at all, like The Beach. So it's all of these movies have an aspect of being somewhere or reaching or staying in a place where you're not supposed to be or you shouldn't be allowed to be there. So I thought that was pretty interesting too.
I love that. Do you have any more?
I don't know. It feels like all these beaches and all of them felt like they weren't on Earth. If that makes sense.
Like otherworldly.
It could be some. Yeah, exactly. And I think part of that in all of them was the no reception on the cell phone.
Yeah, they're super disconnected.
Yeah, like the disconnect from the real world, I think, isn't only literal but also metaphorical as well in what they're doing and what they're trying to find and stuff like that. So I thought that was a cool aspect of all the movies. The fact that that's another thing I was going to say with like the whole human nature and humans and nature aspect of it. I think that is why all of these movies use body horror,
Yeah.
because there's the only real physical form that we have of looking at our nature are our bodies. And in all of them, nature, whether it's aging a shark or the sand, is tearing the bodies apart. And it's that juxtaposition of them living in this bliss created by nature, but it is also what kills them and destroys them. And last one, I noticed that in all of these movies, they really focused on, like, a lot of the shots lingered and focused on feet a lot. And I know that gets attributed to directors just being absolute freaks and wanting to include that in their movies. Shout out the boy Tarantino.
We're talking about you, Tarantino.
Yeah, exactly. But then I looked up online and I was like, what is the symbolic meaning of feet in like different cultures and things like that? And it said that feet are often used to represent, like, obviously, or pretty intuitively, grounding and connecting yourself with the earth and with nature and becoming one with like the nature that is around you. So I think that could give an explanation as to why they were doing all these feet close-ups, man.
And it beautifully connects to what you're talking about. In a way, it's like we're born into this world naked, barefoot, and on the beach, you're naked or barefoot. So you're stripped down to, like, in all these movies, like you're saying, it strips them down to like their primal nature or their survival mentality of, like, obviously in all three of these, mostly specifically Old and the Sand, they're like straight up head on facing some supernatural threat, compared to the beach, which is a little bit more abstract and like personal. But it's still there.
No, I agree. And with the beach, it's kind of like, I'd say the monster in the beach was human nature, like, and all the things that make up the most basic desires. Because even now thinking about it, I think there's a line in that right after Leo reaches the beach, he says, like, I am now on a new mission, like devoting my life to finding pleasure or something like that. And I think that's, I feel like, a very real thing where humans just want pleasure, sort of thing. And that's when I think, like I was talking about earlier in that specific one, that the video game scene was kind of like his escape, because he didn't really know how to deal with the fact that he realized, like, now he's in full like primal mode, and then him almost at the end getting shot by Tilda Swinton made the rest of the group realize, like, oh my goodness, what are we doing? Like, it reminded me a lot of Lord of the Flies, but everyone just kind of had the wake-up call much earlier than they did in the Lord of the Flies. So it didn't really descend into all of that, but it was kind of like realizing, again, like, what am I willing to do to stay here? And people not liking that and wanting to return to their old self, their old lives. And think, like you said, that towards the end of the movie, he kind of wanted to go back to the person that he was before. And it's like, I definitely got that as well. And I think that just goes to show that the person we were, are, and will be are all the same, man. We're all just one.
Yeah, it's true. Okay. Before we get too carried away, though, I'm bringing us back to the Sand.
Nope.
How did you? I will say another reason I loved this movie is that we don't really, I know I mentioned that the CGI is ridiculous, but we don't really see the monster for a lot of it all that much. And I think that's another reason I can appreciate it more, because I don't know. I love when like the monster is just as much as a threat without seeing like what it looks like. By the end, we see that it looks absolutely ridiculous. It's just like some
At
tentacles.
the end of the movie, is it in the water?
Yes, so I want to talk about the ending because it's my favorite part, because it makes me wish that there was a sequel so bad, because
New Sharknado, man, if they made a
yeah,
sequel.
well, and like we see, we think that it's over because Kaylee has tried to blow it up essentially with some gasoline and matches, because they learn that it doesn't like fire, and everything's fine. Her and Shonda both survive, which I was hype about. Two final girls. And then we get to see the full monster, swimming through the deep, and the camera pans up to show it swimming straight for Santa Monica Pier. Which I just think is so funny, because I just love to imagine what that would have looked like. And fun fact, actually, there are fans of The Sand, my people, who have started a rumor online that The Sand 2 is coming out this year, starring Priyanka Chopra, Jason Statham, and Idris Elba. I just thought that was I'm like, okay, what a random.
I'm there. I'm sad.
But yeah, I'm sad. So, we can, a girl can dream. Another man's trash is another man's treasure, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that what they say? Alrighty. Well, if you guys want to check it out, I don't know if we've convinced you fully, but you can stream it for free on Tubi and Canopy with a LA Public Library card, or you can rent it on demand. We'd love to hear you guys' thoughts on it. I'm curious if there's any The Sand sympathizers out there. All right, well, that's a wrap on Gimme 3 Sinister Beaches. Whether it's a parasitic sand monster, time itself turning against you, or the selfish ways humans consistently and inevitably ruin paradise, these beach set nightmares show us that even the sunniest patches of paradise can cast the darkest shadows. Michael, thank you so much for joining me on this wild ride. It's always a joy to have you here on the show.
Thank you very much. Happy to be here, and look forward to the next time.
Absolutely. We hope you guys enjoyed our deep dive into these wild movies, and we'd love to hear your thoughts on the films. You can scroll down to the episode description and hit the send us a text link. We'll even read your thoughts on the podcast. Or you can reach us on Instagram at gimme3podcast. That's GIMME, spell out 3 podcast. And really quickly, if you love the podcast and you want to support the show even more, here are 2 quick things that go a long way. One, you could set our episodes to auto download on Spotify. It's super easy. Just go to our podcast page, tap the settings gear to auto download, and you're good to go. You can listen to us anytime, no matter where you are in the world. 2, we also have a Patreon you can subscribe to for just $5 a month. You can get bonus episodes, exclusive content. If you're seeking maybe some spoiler-free content, we have a monthly watch list episode where we pick 3 movies from our watch list, pitch them to each other, pitch them to you guys. It's a lot of fun. You can find the link to subscribe in the episode description below as well. And Mike, do you want to tell the people where they can find you on the socials? Letterboxd, maybe?
Sure. Yeah, definitely. On Letterboxd, you can find me at M Eljaiek. That's MELJAIEK. And send me some suggestions on there for sure. I guess you can't really send suggestions on there, but I'll look at your watch list.
If you could. Yeah, I'll stalk your watch list. And you guys can find me on Instagram at Portrait of a Cinephile and on Letterboxd at B Efstratis. Thanks again for joining us on the Gimme 3 podcast, and we will see you at the movies.